My dear faculty friends, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your invitation to make my presentation on the need for and the role of endoscopy in the era of laparoscopy. Friends, like a subspecialty in laparoscopy, endoscopy also have so many different specialties, you will soon understand. And actually, when you trace back the history, 4 decades ago, we used to do all the endoscopy ourselves. Then the last 30 years, fascinated by the developments in the laparoscopic surgery, we left the flexible endoscopy in the hands of our medical colleagues, but not realizing that the road less traveled by us now is actually having a more chances or more advancements are going to happen in the coming years. I have presented one paper in our JMAS, the 10 reasons why as a surgeon we also be doing endoscopy even now. Because let me just give you some case scenarios. Importance of the diagnostic endoscopy in the hands of the surgeon. See, for example, a patient comes with the reflux symptoms, then if you have the skill set, then you can do yourself an endoscopy, wherein when you pass the scope, do a J manual like what is shown here, you will be able to see the laxity of the lower esophageal sphincter, and also you will be able to understand the sliding hiatus hernia. Then you will be able to perform not only the Nissen's fundoplication, and if necessary bring the patient post fundoplication, how good and how competent, what was a lax LES now made competent. So, all these things you not wait, the pre-operative, post-operative endoscopy can be essentially done by you or your colleague in the department. Next, a small example for therapeutic endoscopy, because control of bleeding is in the arena of every surgeon. So, when you have a patient with a cirrhosis, with a bleeding due to esophageal varices, the varices can be easily tackled by this banding, by a suction apparatus, very easy. You see one, do one with your excellent hand-eye coordination. This is a very easily obtainable skill set. Then coming to the next one, of course, if the bleeding is more severe, like duodenal ulcer bleeding, even there, like what we normally do is a stitch, similar principle they are going to use by applying the hemoclip. So, all this vital skill set, I think one has to learn ourselves. I do not think we need to rely and wait for our medical colleagues to come all the time. And if not, we are able to give any cure to a patient by doing esophagectomy, as a palliative intent in a patient with locally advanced CA esophagus with not able to swallow, then you can put a stent deployment, or when you have done an anastomosis where there is a problem of leakage, then as a rescue package you will be able to deploy a stent. So, stent deployment is a very essential skill set one can easily learn if you are having a heart and mind into it. I am sure you all know, even though the standard of care for all obesity nowadays is a surgery like a sleeve gastrectomy and ROI bypass, still when you have a patient who wants a non-surgical approach or minimally invasive or no incision approach like endoscopic sleeve or balloon, then you are right there to these techniques. And as you already know, for achalasia nowadays, rather than patient going for a lap Heller's myotomy, more and more people are now preferring for going for what we call the third space or a POEM procedure, peroral myotomy. As you can see clearly, this third space endoscopy has increased the potential of the flexible endoscopy's therapeutic spectrum, entering the third space or a submucosal space around 25 centimeter, and then navigating all along up to 40 and beyond about 3 centimeter into the stomach. On your way out with the endoscopy, you can do what we call a myotomy, then close the small mucosal incision you made by hemoclips. It is a very simple natural orifice surgery, and it can be learned. Of course, it has a steep learning curve. And there are some other endoscopy procedures now in the development and fascinating stage like GRD. Days are gone when we did all this procedure like Nissen's and Tope. Now we have a straight up procedure, the radio frequency ablation of the lower esophageal sphincter by this technique, which can increase the zonal pressure or the lower esophageal pressure, so prevent the reflux of acid. Or you can even do what we achieve by Nissen's by placating and creating a new 270-degree valve right at the OG junction by what we call the transoral incisionless fundoplication, or called Isofix or Gerdex device. All these devices are little expensive nowadays, but I am sure it will be soon become very easily manageable conditions. Coming to the next important thing where we feel as a surgeon we should learn the skill set is ERCP. See, for example, you have done a lap chole, the patient on day 4 or day 5 still drain having 200-300 ml of bile, and then you have done an MRCP, as you can see here with the ERCP scope, bile duct and the cystic clip is seen, but further up here somewhere there is a leak from the liver bed. It is classical case of what I call the duct of Luschka leak. This is what happens as pictorially represented here. All you need to do is go in, do a diagnostic duodenoscopy, do a wide sphincterotomy with or without a stent insertion. So, intrabiliary pressure is dramatically reduced, the bile preferentially drained this way, and the drain through the drain it will not drain, and it will be very, very gratifying non-surgical procedure as a treatment of choice. Coming to the other end of the spectrum, colonoscopy not only diagnoses the sessile and the pedunculated polyp, and there are advancements so that you will be able to see without even a biopsy what is the type of polyp you are having, and also there are various avenues are there in order to remove them non-surgically. For example, you can do a snare polypectomy like this, and also you can do what we call the endoscopic submucosal dissection of a large sessile polyp or villous adenoma of the rectum. So, these prevents unnecessary surgery and that reduces the chance of cancer in a later rate. But what is more interesting is the endoscopy during the laparoscopic surgery, or essentially for laparoscopic surgeon. I will give you few more examples. Pre-operatively, for example, you are a bariatric surgeon, you are about to do a sleeve gastrectomy or ROI bypass. It is always ideal, I am sure all of us know, pre-operative endoscopy preferably by the surgeon himself is important for two reasons. One, if you find a reflux or a hiatus hernia, that patient is not suitable for sleeve gastrectomy, ideally ROI-GAB. If you have a patient planned for bypass like this stomach is going to be excluded in the rest of his lifetime. So, better you have a good examination of the whole stomach, so that not to miss any early tumor or a polyps like that, or H. pylori infection that has to be eradicated. So, for those who are going to have this procedure, pre-operative endoscopy is must. Similarly, if you are a HBB surgeon, all of us know when a patient comes with a gallstone, at least 10% of your patient may have a concomitant CBD stone, and in those cases ideally the patient needs ERCP pre-operatively, or even you can do an intraoperatively. So, there you always wish either you or your colleague knows ERCP. So, both of you work in concurrence. Intraoperatively, let me tell you for few more examples. As I can say here, as an endoscopist first phase, we travel to the second phase, we still enjoying our time, but there is a lot more happening here, especially the endoscopy laparoscopic collaborative surgery is a big field, it is having a lot of potentials. Let me give you some example. A small gist tumor in the stomach you have, and you want to operate, but you do not want to do a gastrectomy, you want to do a sleeve gastrectomy. So, stay suture very close to the lesion on the serosal aspect, and you are about to staple, but what is better is to have an endoscopic surgeon passively from inside telling you, yes, you got the lesion in the stapler. So, as a laparoscopic surgeon you are actively performing, you have the key role, but the presence of endoscopic surgeon at that time ensures you are able to resect with a good clearance and also not remove unnecessarily a larger chunk of stomach. Just is an example. Second case, for example, you have a Laparoscopy myotomy, but in a patient who had a previous surgery with a lot of adhesions, you do not know where the lower esophageal sphincter at all or hiatus it is. So, when you have an endoscopy at that time, the light is shown from inside will tell you exactly where to dissect, and also it will help you to ensure that you have done a complete myotomy, there is no mucosal breach. All those things can be done thankfully by you, both of you understanding and coordinating with you. And of course, if you are a colorectal surgeon, what as a colonoscopist can offer pre-operatively, either I can remove the lesion or even if it is I am not possible, I can at least inject some tattoo very close to that area, so that you can see where the lesion and the serosal aspect, because there are horror stories once again where they have removed a wrong segment of the bowel because you do not have a tactile feedback. So, serosally you will be able to see either by injecting either ICG or India ink preoperatively, or I can come in intraoperatively, tell you intraoperative colonoscopy. And also there are classical example of what we call a collaborative surgery, where a laparoscopic surgeon, when he is resecting a small polyp in the cecal pole, then a colonoscopy will be there to ensure that I am not breaching the ileocecal valve as shown here. So, there are various clear advantages. So, it is like a board where endoscopist, laparoscopist sit together and just can decide about the sequence of action in each and every patient. Coming to the post-operative phase, especially when you have a surgical complication, endoscopist can come for your rescue, because the another surgery is not the answer in such patients. Like for example, immediate post-op we have bleeding, we can go in and look for what is the source of the bleeding, and if it is a small spot of the anastomosis, we can put a hemoclip, or if it is going to be anastomotic leak, not to worry, depending upon the situation, either we can put a stent in the upper airway of an esophageal leak, or in the colon. Sometimes you may use always one thing, a vacuum or endovac, or a drainage also can be used, like a sponge. Endo sponge also is coming up in a big way. And in a later part, like few months down the line, there is a stricture of the anastomosis that can be dilated by what we call a CRE balloon. Like classical example is the bypass, bariatric bypass has come narrowed down, so the patient is having a vomiting. So, you can have a precise enlargement. I want only 12 millimeter or 15 millimeter, that can be done by the controlled radial expansion balloon like this. So, there are lots of advantages by knowing the skill of flexible endoscopy and a therapeutic potential. So, try to be a smart surgeon, not a salvage surgeon. Do not just go when your colleague, medical colleague call you whenever he gets like perforation because of his procedure. Upfront you try to master the technique, try to do it yourself, because in the coming years all these procedures are endoscopically done, like CBD stone, which is better, lap CBD or ERCP. And for example, nowadays when you have a patient with a gastric outlet obstruction because of advanced tumor, the best is you are used to do a GJ, laparotomy or laparoscopy GJ. Now endo ultrasound guided SEM stent or LAM stent is the answer, and we already know the poem is slowly replacing the Lappellers myotomy. So, unless you know this, you are going to lose a significant chunk of our surgical spectrum, because though we moved from the big incision big surgery to a small incision surgeries, patients very often they feel that no incision surgery is the thing they look for. So, you please go get trained. IHS incidentally has both basic level 1 training, teach you the diagnostic, therapeutic endoscopy, and also the level 2 where colonoscopy, basic ERCP is there by EFAGS, 4G colonoscopy and ERCP courses. We do what we call, in addition to patient based, simulation based training also done. We use various models apart from the mechanical, virtual trainer, cadaver training, and also the live cases. So, we have the set modules. So, at least it will put you on the right trajectory and fast track your training schedule. And we have come out also with the excellent manuals both in the endoscopy and colonoscopy to help you to have a clear cognitive understanding apart from the technical skills we teach you during the live procedure. So, ladies and gentlemen, we should have, if you think your right eye is a laparoscopy, let the left eye be endoscopy, because by having both you will have a better scope, broader vision. This is my wish anyhow, and we have already trained more than 3,000 IHS members, and numbers are growing, and today you may be a trainee, but tomorrow I wish you are all going to be like me, a trainer. Thank you. I like to see you all in the World Endoscopic Surgery Congress 2024 in Calcutta, October 23 to 26, and please be there to get your coveted fellowship certificates, and also will make the occasion very memorable, lifetime memory for all of us. Thank you.